He made great moments incredible and unforgettable. Mary Lemieux dancing through Minnesota, capped off with an "Oh Baby," or a tour by the Russian Red Army that nobody would ever remember is etched into our brains because they're going home. Bob Cole has passed away, passed along some stories and memories of his career and my interactions with the man coming up. Plus, Jake Allen is going to stop by and walk us through what the netminders in a very tumultuous first round are thinking in these Stanley Cup playoffs. It's the Chirp Podcast with Darren Millard.
Boys, I'm Mike today. Just let everyone know, don't say anything stupid.
That's a disgrace! That's a disgrace! What a joke! Heads up!
Oh, how'd that feel, old man?
What are you gonna do? You! Ah!
I'm gonna run you. I'm just waiting for my shift.
Working our way through the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, there is a celebration occurring in our game. It is not involving the 2024 postseason, but rather revolves around Bob Cole. The great Bob Cole from St. John's, Newfoundland, a curler at heart, but an ultimate professional from the broadcast booth. A true and pure play-by-play voice. Didn't plan to talk about Bob today, but the news about his passing has resulted in an outpouring of memories that has been shared with us on social media and on different websites, and I can't get enough of any of it. Quite honestly, Bob Cole was my guy of our generation. His voice, his cadence, his tempo, it was different, and it became more unique as the years passed, as play-by-play people became pseudo-analysts along the way, that you became a little bit of everything. Bob wasn't everything. He was his one thing. He was play-by-play, and he was hockey. His delivery, it was a roller coaster ride, a roller coaster of words. And he would slowly build you up as you go up, and you can hear the ticking of the track, and you're going up, and there's that anticipation. And you didn't know it at the time what was on the other side on the roller coaster, and you certainly didn't know it when Bob was building you up. He didn't know what was going to happen, but he had this incredible knack to time things. And then you would go flying down the other side of the roller coaster, and Bob would take you for this unbelievable ride of twists and turns and just change his cadence at the perfect moment and deliver you another rush of adrenaline. And then he would slow it back down. There wasn't this constant need to fill the airwaves. There wasn't this requirement to have a conversation in the broadcast booth. And I do appreciate a lot of what happens in today's broadcast of our sport. But I miss the Bob Cole ability to do it on his own. There's probably a lot of things that you're going to hear about different sides of Bob and what he would do in the booth. And sometimes he would give his analyst what we called the Heisman. Like, he's got it. He's going to either take it a break or he's going to do the replay, but he's got it. And it's just a legendary. Any analyst who got to work with Bob would relish that moment. They maybe like try to spin it in a way that was good for their ego, but deep down, you relish that moment. And there's the Bob that you got to meet off camera, who was the same way in studio work. Bob would come and visit sometimes, and he would walk around the corner, and you would hear your name. I would hear my name coming out of Bob Cole, and then we would have these conversations. Now, I was not a lifelong friend of Bob's. I got to know him late in his time at Hockey Night in Canada. But being able to sit there and share your thoughts on hockey with Bob Cole, or better yet, if you were smart enough, you just appreciated the moment for what it was, and you listened to him. Bob Cole was 90 years old, an East Coaster right to the very heart of his soul. I want to share one story with you that has nothing to do with broadcasting, but is unique because there's about 6 of us in the world that were there that night and got to witness and be part of Bob Cole doing something that any of us could do, but it was just different and way more special because it was Bob Cole. So this is in the early 2000s in Toronto, and a bunch of us are out for some cold beers at a place called Lord Stanley's Mug at Air Canada Centre at the time after a Leaf game. And there's some executives, there's broadcasters, there's a bunch of friends, my future wife, and we're having beers. And one of the executives that was there, broadcast executive, television executives, has his briefcase stolen. He looks down and it's gone. And we'd just been talking to Bob and some fans. And we'd been having this great conversation. These young lads were young lads. I was probably the same age at the time, but these guys were getting stories from Bob and sharing their admiration of him. But we looked down, and the briefcase is gone. And Bob's sitting there going, "What?" And we're all devastated because inside this briefcase, serious numbers, and we're not talking protected by a password on your iPhone. Like, you could get some numbers. Wayne Gretzky's number. I always remember Wayne Gretzky's number is in that briefcase. So we're all trying to figure out what's going to happen. Bob goes back to his hotel, and 20 minutes later, we haven't come to any type of solution on this. Bob is back, and a friend of ours says Bob just found the briefcase, and she hands it over to us, and passes along the story that they were leaving Air Canada Centre near the subway stop, and they ran into these young people who had the briefcase of the executive. And Bob looked at them and went, "Son, you and I both know that briefcase is not yours." I know it's bad, Bob Cole, but that's the way he delivered it. "I want the briefcase." And they handed it back, and Bob got the briefcase back. But can you imagine taking that briefcase and you get busted by Bob Cole just outside the subway in Toronto? And Bob got it back. Everything was good in the world. And it was an unbelievable, it was like Mario Lemieux going through the Minnesota North Stars, but with the briefcase. Or the Russian Red Army. They're leaving. They're going home. That kid was going home, but he didn't get to keep his briefcase. The calls are legendary. The words are legendary. It's deeply sad that we've lost the man, but he worked so late into his life doing the thing that he loved in the broadcast booth. And I have some pictures of Bob. The last time that we worked together was at a Little Caesars Arena, a game involving the Detroit Red Wings, of course, and being able to work on a team with Bob Cole. And I'll never forget, I threw back to him one time and said, "Bobby." And I got a text immediately from John Shannon. Just said, "Bobby?" ? And I'm like, I don't know why I said that. He was right beside me, actually. I was in the booth doing something with Kenny Holland and threw back to the start of the period to Bob, who was 2 feet away, and it just felt natural. But I think I was the only one to ever call him Bobby on the air. And the best part is he didn't say a word. Didn't bother him, or he didn't say he was bothered, and it was just a moment, and I'll cherish our brief times and interactions together. Loved him busting the guy at the briefcase, but just being able to work with him and being able to throw to Bob, either from the studio or down from ice level or in the broadcast booth, throw it to Bob Cole and hear him say my name. It was a moment, an accomplishment, a mile marker. Thank you, Bob Cole. Appropriately, a fellow East Coaster, Jake Allen, is with us this week on the Chirp podcast with Darren Millard, the New Jersey Devil netminder. Did a brief guest appearance, broke into the television side of things on Hockey Night in Canada for a spell, and got his feet wet on that side. And really important because we've had a number of situations develop early on in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs involving the crease, from rotations to big money to injuries to sensational performances and a couple of stumbles. So here is Jake Allen on the Chirp Podcast with Darren Millard. From one hot seat over to the other, it's the crease to the broadcast studio. Here's Jake Allen. Have you liked the transition? Were you nervous about the transition? Tell me about that.
Yeah, looking back on it in hindsight, I was glad I did it. It was a great experience for me to see that side of the business, a side of the business that really promotes our game to the, utmost for our fans and, gives us an opportunity to, on our platform to do what we do. But I was nervous, no question. I'd say the first take, when they basically said we're 3, 2, 1, I had the jitters, no question. But after that take, being with those guys, Ron MacLean, how good he is his job, and made me feel very comfortable.
Were you surprised at the reaction or the discussion about the goaltenders behind the scenes in that viewing room? Was it the same as what you expected was going on?
Not really. I didn't know there was that nice of a setup for a viewing room. It's a great spot to watch hockey.
It is a good setup, yeah.
You got a bunch of TVs. You can watch multiple games. You can talk about, the hockey, the ins and outs of it with guys that, are passionate about the game too. So I only imagined there'd be some games on there when I wasn't playing too well that I'd be getting some words behind my back that wouldn't be great. But honestly, it was a super cool experience from all around, and very thankful for them to give me the chance.
All right, let's get into some of the goaltending storylines from this first round. Swayman and Ullmark, would you continue the rotation?
What I said on Sportsnet too was, I would have imagined they had a plan from the get-go. And I imagine the plan was the first few games. So first few, probably 2 would be, and they probably would have dictated that to the goalies, I would imagine, especially since they're rotation all year long. And they would have told the guys straight up before the series even started, said, Swayman, you're playing game 1, Ullmark, you're playing game 2, regardless of the outcome. And then I think they'd probably reconvene and see how things went after that. And obviously, I think Ullmark still had a great game, the second game. But it'd be tough to go against Swayman. I think just with his record, his last 6 games against the Leafs, he's 6-0. There's a thing to that. There is a point behind that it makes a difference, and goalies will tell you that there's a comfortability factor against certain teams or in certain buildings that you have that it's tough to replicate. It doesn't matter who's your other goalie, and I still think Ullmark, they have the best tandem in the NHL by a mile. And if they go back to Ullmark, there's a no-lose situation. But I think after the second game with Swayman, I think you'd stick with him.
Would you, if you were Linus Ullmark, understand?
For sure. It seems like they have an awesome relationship. By the amount of they do the hug every game, it just seems like you have to have a good relationship to be able to rotate every single game in that capacity. There's always a guy that wants the net more than the other, but you have to be understanding and be a team first guy to be able to do that every single night when you realize that I'm a Vezina Trophy winner from the previous season. I should be playing more than 40 games, but this is for the benefactor of our group. And that, I think, goes to show what type of relationship they have. And I'm sure he would understand.
What advice would you give Casey DeSmith going to Nashville?
I actually got to know Casey a little bit because he was in Montreal before he went to Van, and a great guy, extremely talented goalie, like blew me away when I saw him on the ice in practice. Probably the quickest water bug in the league, east-west, and he's got so much explosiveness in his game. It's unbelievable. But, I don't know his playoff experience prior to this. I'm not privy to that, but I think just be yourself. I think you get thrown into a situation like that, and you try to be Thatcher Demko, or you try to be someone you're not. And that's usually when things go haywire. They do for me anyway. When you try to play outside your comfort zone and you do things that you're not supposed to do, or you want to be, a Patrick Waugh, a Conn Smythe Trophy winner in the playoffs. But, he's a really good goalie in this league. He's been the goalie for a long time. And I just think if he plays his game, Vancouver's very structured defensively. And we've seen these first 2 games of the series, it's been not a whole lot going on offensively on both sides. Saros has made some good stops, but I think if, Casey just plays his game, he's going to give him a great chance to win.
Can you just expand on that a little bit, Jake? Because I know if a forward tries to do too much, they might turn over the puck, or they try to be a goal scorer when they're not really that role. When you say a goaltender trying to be outside their game, what does that mean?
Sometimes it's different for every goalie, depending on your game plan, your structure, and how you play. But sometimes for a person or a goalie like Casey, he's already very aggressive in his game plan. He's quick, but some goalies that are a little bit more passive in their game might try to be outside the blue paint. Then you get a little bit lost, then you get a little bit uncomfortable, and then you're sort of outside your norm, your comfort zone. And then for a goalie, maybe that's a little bit of aggressive. Try to be extra aggressive. You try to really, you just want it so much. You want the puck so bad that in hindsight, it kills you. The puck's usually behind you at that point. So I think the big thing is letting the game come to you, really trying to not play outside your norms, play outside your comfort zone, and try to get as comfortable as you can early. I still remember my first playoff experience in St. Louis, and that's exactly what I did. I was, 23, 4 years old. I tried to be, the Vezina Trophy winner in the playoffs, and it wasn't. We lost in 6 games, and then I learned from that. So I have firsthand experience of it, and I think it's just like you're gripping a stick so tight as a player or a golfer on the golf course. It's like you want the puck so bad as a goalie, and sometimes that hinders you.
Is what's happening between Winnipeg and Colorado more about the forwards and the talent there, or is there a little bit of responsibility from the two netminders?
I mean, it's always a team game. It's tough that's a tough situation to put it. I mean, as a goalie, it doesn't matter who you are, you're Hellebuyck or Georgiev or Martin Brodeur, you always want every puck back. There's always a thing. As soon as the puck was in the net, you could have done differently unless it was a bounce off 12 players in the net. But in a guy of Hellebuyck's stature, and how good he is, and he knows how good he is. He plays with a very high confidence level, and that's why he is so good. You have to have that confidence in your game to be as consistent as he is all the time. And there's no question he's going to want some of those goals back. But I think there was a stretch during the season, I can't remember, he might have gone 30 games, or maybe I'm being ridiculous, without allowing more than 3 goals.
Yeah.
And that is an unbelievable feat, which is impressively hard to explain how hard that is to do. So for him, but I also think he has such a good understanding of the game that in the playoffs, he doesn't care if he lets in 6 as long as he wins. There's going to be a point where he's going to say, yeah, maybe I could have done this differently or this differently. But I think he's at a point in his career in his understanding of his game, and he's such a team first guy. You see him want to stay there in Winnipeg and win the cup. I think it's just about making, that one extra save. That's the way I see it from his standpoint. And I think the second game of Georgiev, I knew right away after the first goal went in, he made about 3 or 4 saves within the next, 4 to 6 minutes that I could tell got him comfortable. He looked like a different goalie. And I immediately knew at that point, I didn't know if they're going to win or lose the game, but I knew that he was regaining confidence from those saves. I could just tell there was like a couple saves during a game as a goalie that, maybe from a viewer from the outside perspective, it's just a save, it's nothing crazy, but maybe there's a technical aspect he was happy with the way he did things, and that builds confidence and that breeds confidence. And I could tell from those 4 to 6 minutes after that goal went in, when Winnipeg put another push on to try to get another one, that he stood his ground and he just looked like a different goalie, and they ended up winning.
That feeling must be incredible as a netminder when it clicks in.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, for a guy like him too, obviously everyone's putting a ton of heat on him after the first game. It's even a better feeling because you're slowly building. Okay, I'm building something here, and hopefully he can keep it going for game 3.
How much pressure is on the goaltender in Toronto? And that's a big picture question. And then there's what's Ilya Samsonov is going through right now.
There's pressures everywhere. It always matters. There's always pressure. It just depends on how you analyze that pressure on yourself, really. In the Toronto market, I played in Montreal, obviously not in the playoffs per se for myself. I was on the bench. I was watching Pricer do his thing, work his magic. But but I think that goes back to another thing that I just talked about late with Casey. I think Samsonov's a great goalie. I played against him a lot over the last few years, and trying not to do too much in the net. And I think that's when he has success, is when his game is quiet his feet are quiet, his body's quiet, and he has success. And there's pressure on the whole group. It's not just on Ilya. I think he'll be fine.
Were you watching the other night the Florida and Tampa Bay game, and what was your reaction to the showdown between the two Russians and alternating big saves?
That was incredible. It was fun to watch. I mean, we all know we love goalies. We're hockey fans through and through, and man, it was just entertaining. I know the league sells and prides itself on goals, and goals make the dollars and build our pockets and the bank accounts, but you can't tell me that game wasn't entertaining from a fan's perspective. That rivalry in that arena has become a great, fun place to play now that they're building such a good thing down in South Florida. And, everyone knows what Vasilevsky's done. Everyone knows the history of Bob, and Bob's really found his game the last 2 years. And it was just a showdown. It was a duel for the ages. And obviously it's so cool that they're both Russian guys, and obviously they must have a lot of respect for each other. So hopefully we see another one, because I mean, to me, and probably to you, that's just as entertaining as a 7-6 game, and hopefully more people think that way.
The behind the back arm save, they don't teach that at goalie school, do they?
No, they don't. That is happens when you are on. Obviously, when you're on, your brain's clicking, and when your brain is firing at that high of a cylinder and that high of a rate, to realize that I'm completely screwed, but I'm going to try to put something in, basically in the middle of the net.
Yeah.
And that's the way that a lot of goalies think about it. Is you're out of position, it's desperation. Let's throw something in the middle of the net. And you know what? I was sort of laughing when that save happened, because, as a player, the coach is always like, "Oh, you got to raise the puck. You got to raise the puck," right? And that's one of those situations. If you just slid it on the ice, it's a goal. But it gets so ingrained in players nowadays that they have to raise the puck. Especially in tight. And it worked for Bob, and I was super happy to see him make that stop.
Did you play the guy at the other end? Was he a factor or is he a factor when you are in a game?
Yeah, I always like challenging myself against the other guy. That's the way I see it. Like that's sort of the game within the game for me, in a fun way. I don't take it overly
Some
serious.
guys are the opposite, right? Like they're like,
Yeah,
it
no,
doesn't matter what.
But you know what? I also like seeing goalies make stops. It's just a fun battle. So like, if I'm playing the other end and the goalie makes a great save on Jack Hughes or something, and I internally tap my stick to him. It's just the nature of the game. There's nothing that I can do that or couldn't do that save would or would not have happened. It's I really enjoy it. I think I've enjoyed it more as I've gotten older, to watch a lot of these younger guys come up in the game they play. And you take tidbits from them too. If you're not constantly learning this league, I think you're done. I think the game's always evolving. I think you just got to constantly learn and take things from other guys. And again, what I just said, there's nothing that I can do, whatever goalie X is doing on the other side, that's going to change my game. So, but I do understand your point where some goalies do get rattled. Oh, this guy's stoning our team. Maybe we're never going to store him. But I mean, I've been in the league long enough to know that you can't get bothered by that stuff.
One of my favorite things is in a summer skate and you tap your stick for the other goalie and the guys in your team are mad at you. Like, what are you cheering for that guy for?
I know you get the August guys that have the competitive side of Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah. So you did in St. Louis during that Stanley Cup run. I know you've talked about this before, but I'm curious, putting it in present day, did the imitation of Tuukka Rask along the way of giving your team a bit of a scout look? Who would you love to imitate right now in this first round?
That's a good question, actually.
Who picks your brain a little bit where you go, that guy'd be fun to try and get inside his head and his stance and his style?
You know what? Even though I don't know if I could imitate him because my hips would blow out, but Vazzy, I think, would for sure. He'd be one. And I think Ottinger too. I think there's some things in his game that I don't know either of the guys at all, but just really try to learn what they're doing a little bit sometimes in certain situations. They're obviously so successful and they're both way better goalies than I am. But I always try to learn. And
what do you like about their games? Give me a little bit of behind the curtain.
I think Ottinger's very smart. I think that's one thing I don't know if he gets credit for. I think he's very intelligent. Obviously he's got the size, but He's got the intelligence in his net. I think he knows when to challenge, when not to, knows when to be passive, when not to. But he also has the skating ability to do both. Some guys don't have that. Some guys, he's got the size to be passive, but he's also got the knowledge and the athletic ability and the skating to be aggressive when he needs to be. And I think Vasi he's got the whole toolbox really at his beck and call.
It's unfair that he's that talented, that big.
Exactly. Yeah. So, just certain save selections, he decides to choose when, he probably could have done something else because he is that big and that, flexible, and he's got hips like an octopus. And, it's like, it'd be incredible to be able to sit around and, get to know the guys, but understand their philosophy. And also, if I had to imitate him, I'd imitate him at my best.
Could you imitate a southpaw?
Oh, that'd be tough. I thought about the Logan Thompson, but that would be very tough. I don't know if I could go that far.
Could you pull it off for a couple of muffins?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he tossed me out. Yeah, no problem. I got it.
Because Vasi was a southpaw. I don't know whether you know that.
I did not know that.
He was a southpaw, but they didn't have the right-handed catching equipment in his hometown, so he taught himself how to play. Another, like, really seriously, you're that good, and then you're naturally a left-hand catcher. But
that's actually
he taught himself
scary
to do that. Yeah,
that's like, imagine if he kept playing as a southpaw, like how much, I don't know how much better he could be, but anyway, crazy.
Cam Talbot, put yourself in those shoes of facing that team. What's the mentality of the LA Kings netminder?
Well, I think for one, he's, the whole Kings team, and especially Cam, like going back to LA now 1-1, they got to be smiling, they got to be happy. And I think he is too. It's not an easy place to play for one in Edmonton, and he's had history there of playing there. There's always a bit of awkwardness when you're going back and playing your own team, or you have a bit of history with them. Maybe the guys aren't there, but that's the way I feel anyway. And I thought, I didn't get the whole game last night, but I watched most of the highlights today. He found a way to win. And I think of the playoffs is about navigating games and navigating series. And you can say that about the regular season too, but it's about finding ways to get through the game. It's not going to be pretty all the time, but I think he should be comfortable going back to LA and his home and back in his own bed, back in their own barn with a 1-1 series. But to what you said, defending against the Oilers, obviously LA did a lot better job shutting McDavid down last night, and Draisaitl, their depth scoring, got them their goals last night, but always an extra play against those guys. So when you think that, when you're playing against McDavid and Draisaitl and even Nugent Hopkins, there's always an extra play. It's there's always one more slight pass that not many guys see, or you would expect from 80% of the league. There's always an extra play. So it's probably about being patient on your feet. It's usually what I told myself when I played them. Being as patient as you can, really trying to stay within your blue as much as possible. And really also too is I find even, I talked with Montembeault a little bit about that last year in Montreal, like, dropping into the RVH sometimes isn't great against those guys because you want to be on your feet so much, just because there's so many extra plays. So I think trying to pick your spots when you drop in, into your posts and just little things like that, I think make the details at the end of the day. I think patience is crucial.
Would you rather get beat being patient or being aggressive? Like, because both can make you look a little bit odd.
Right. I think for me, it'd be more patient, a little bit deeper again in a series like that. There's so many East-West plays. I think for me, give yourself an opportunity to make the stop within your posts, within your frame. For me, that would probably be the answer, but always it's easier said than done. And it's all situational awareness, but it's just me spitballing.
Do you feel any sympathy, or is it just one of those situations? What's happening on Long Island with Sorokin and Varlamov, with Patrick Waugh coming in? Because that is a presence. You know that from Montreal, and what he still casts, what the shadow is over there from your time with the Canadians. Unique situation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I ended up playing Varlamov near the end of the season, and the Islanders want to roll them. They were, I want to say they were 7-1-2 coming into the game. And I think Varlamov played the majority of those games, if I was wrong or right, sorry. And he has a history with Patrick too. You can't mistake that there's a confidence factor between, your goalie and a comfortability factor in your coach. And but he's also played very well. They play hard defensively, and I think the last couple games, I know they came back from 3 rip, but I mean, I think it's just more of a momentum changer. I think they're going back to Sorokin. I just was looking
Yes.
on the TV there. So I don't think it's at the fault of anyone for Varlamov. He's played so great throughout the rest of that season last year to really get them into the playoffs. But we all know how talented Sorokin is. He is right there behind Vazzy for me. Again, another guy with hips like an octopus. To him and Shesterkin, I I wish I would go over there and train with them for summer, but it's not a bad second option.
Would it be hard to play for a legend of your position?
I am not sure what he's like as a coach. I can't speak for that. I've never had the experience, but I'm sure Patrick's probably very understanding also. We all know how competitive he is, growing up and watching him, but I'm sure he's understanding the position. I think he probably demands a lot of every player, not just the goalie. He seems like a very demanding coach, but he gets a lot out of his players. And I think once you break that ice a little bit with him, that would probably be the more imposing thing at the beginning. I think that's where you probably saw Varlamov have a bit of success, was he knew what he was, coming from Colorado, and I think vice versa. So I think it depends on who you are and how you take things. And maybe if you're a younger guy, it could be a bit more imposing for sure.
You're back in Montreal after finishing the season in New Jersey. What was your takeaway from the post-trade deadline experience there?
It was a great experience for me. Obviously I'm looking forward to next year already, but I got to play again. I just got to be me in the net. There was got to play a lot, but from my perspective and my takeaway from the big picture, there's so much talent with throughout that lineup. Obviously we're missing Dougie and a few other players, but right from Jack right through our top 6, a very talented group, but also a very young group. I think you get misconceived sometimes when even myself, I did when they had the 110 or 112 point season the year previous to getting there, to realize, man, we're still a super young club, not many young teams like that put up numbers like that. So I think there's a bit of also a belief that this team, if they put all the pieces together, can be a good team for a long time, because they have a lot of great core pieces. And, I'm excited to go in there next year and, help them obviously on the ice, but off the ice too, and help them grow. So it worked out great for me.
Well, just having 2 goaltenders on the ice was nice once you got down to it.
Yeah, it was.
And you guys handled it great in Montreal.
Yeah, no, you have to have, if you want to look at it the wrong way, through the wrong lens, it's not going to be good for you or for anyone else involved. You just had to understand the situation. You had to embrace it, and it's not perfect. It wasn't easy for anyone. It wasn't easy for Sam or Caden or myself. So anyway, it is what it is. But to go there and get reps and realize that, I was going to play, I don't know, I think I played 15, 16 games, and over the last 18 or 19, it was just good for me. It was just good to get on the ice, find my game again, be me and know it works for me. And then it's sort of just a building block for the off season, and then build that into next year.
Did Jack try any of the summer league moves on you in practice? Any Michigan stuff or anything like that?
No, he's very respectful. And I don't know if I'm 12 years a senior, but he was great, in practice, but he went bar down on me at least 3 or 4 times at practice too. But he is unbelievably talented.
Awesome stuff. Looking forward to next year, and appreciate your time sharing your experience on television. Would you like to do that if and when you decide to hang them up?
I don't know. I haven't obviously got that far. I want to play as long as I can. That's my goal for one. But, you always want to have opportunities. And it was just a super cool experience to actually get my feet wet on that side of it and sort of understand what it goes on. You always look at the guys on TV. It's like, man, like, what's it really like? I know I only get a snippet for a couple of days, but still, it was a really cool experience. Opened my eyes a lot, and, I'm glad I did it.
Who reached out to you? How'd they get in touch with you?
Reached out through my agent, and then my agent sort of reached out through me and just sort of, got in touch and sort of said, "Do you want to do this?" But I had to give an answer pretty quickly. Season was over, exit meetings. I had to sort of plan my trip back to Montreal and then plan my trip to Toronto. So yeah, I said, let's do it. So I'm glad I did it.
Great. More goalies on TV, the better. That's my philosophy. Appreciate it, Jake, and have a great summer.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome stuff to have Jake in the studio with the guys and be able to share some of his thoughts with us on the Chirp podcast. I really do hope, though, that Jake gets an opportunity to go into the broadcast booth in the rink. No rush. He's got the New Jersey Devils to worry about. And by the way, what would have happened to New Jersey and that chain of events had Jake been acquired earlier? Would New Jersey Devils have made the coaching change in the end? Would Lindy Ruff still be with the Devils instead of the Buffalo Sabres? It's the whole sliding doors thing. Remember that movie, Gwyneth? It just set off a chain reaction there. But I just think we had so many great voices in the booth from a goaltending perspective, and it's balanced out. I'm not saying it's for the wrong or anything like that, but having another goaltender up there and Jake's work that he did with the St. Louis Blues and being able to impersonate other goaltenders and give his team an idea of what to expect, being able to go down that road. I'd never heard of it before, quite honestly, and having that type of ability to translate what you're seeing on the ice into your phone or your TV or whatever we're going to be watching would be great. I hope and look forward to that time after he's done his opportunities in the National Hockey League. Just so appropriate that Jake was with us today, a fellow East Coaster, on the day that we learn about the passing of Bob Cole. And a thank you to Bob for all of your time and all of your memories that you were able to fill our souls with, our hockey hearts with. So please raise a glass, enjoy the moment up there as you step into the heavenly broadcast booth from above. Bob, it will never be the same as when you called our sport and took us to unbelievable new levels, moments that we didn't even know we were feeling until we looked down and we felt the goosebumps. Bob Cole, love you. Oh, baby.